Well, good day. We have a 2010 Garageman's Companion that was towed in last week for a no crank, no start condition. See service 4-wheel drive message. Check engine light comes on with the key. Service airbag message. Service tire pressure monitor. Okay. There's no attempt to crank at all. So we're going to scan it and see if we got any codes before we try to push this thing in the shop. See if this thing will automatically ID. Well, it pulled the VIN, so that's a good sign. Let's try a code scan. See what modules communicate. Crankshaft variation learn. Why would that code be there? Anti-lock brakes, body control. Got fuel pump control module, so that's good. ABS module. There's got to be more computers than that. Well, so far we're almost 95% of the way through, and we only communicate with 6 controllers, so it looks like only the stuff on the high-speed network is talking. Engine, tranny, ABS, body, fuel pump, transfer case, but nothing on the serial data line. That would include the airbag module, the BCM is part of that, the instrument cluster, the driver's door module, passenger door module. Yeah, something's going on with the network here. Let's look at the engine controls and see if we can see status of the crank request. I'll see if I can find it. So I'm in the BCM data looking at the status of the run crank relay command. On off crank signal. Key out. Key in. Ignition run inactive. Active accessory. Ignition off. Key out accessory. Why does that say key out accessory? I got the key in the run position. Accessory on relay. This ignition switch feels weird. I wonder if they got the steering column all apart. I wonder if they were doing something with the ignition switch. Off run crank reference voltage. Key in the ignition. This ignition switch is weird. That's one position. That says 0 volts now. It's like that ignition switch is out of sync. So I talked with the owner of the vehicle and a previous tech that was working on this thing, and this thing has had the ignition switch replaced, the ECM replaced. That's why it's got a code in it for crankshaft variation relearn not performed, because you can't do that until you put it in the vehicle and start it. It's had the starter replaced for this problem, and it doesn't crank. Now I think the ignition switch is out of sync with the ignition lock cylinder, because it just doesn't feel right when you turn the key on. And I watch the ignition run crank, this status parameter right here, key out, key in, off. Now it says key out accessory, and that doesn't make sense. It should say key in accessory. And then I turn it another click and it says run. And then I turn it a little bit more and it barely turns, and you don't get crank. So that is the first problem we have to sort out, and then we'll go from there. Well, I think I finally got it synced right. Key off, key out, power mode off, key in, run, crank request. But it's still not cranking. All right, so at least we got that ignition switch synced now. They had changed the ignition switch and had it out of time, but there's still a network problem here. I got it in the shop now, and I got a battery charger on this thing. So now we're going to look at some data. I think I'm going to put the original ECM back in too. So I've got the original ECM. I'm going to clear all codes, see how many computers respond. I think we got a serial data network problem on this thing, maybe even a CAN bus problem, but seems like all the computers on the CAN bus are talking. Got a clean battery charger on it now. Should be about 15, 16 controllers in this thing. I think it only talked about 6 of them. Topology map would be nice. Snap on. So you can visually see what modules are not responding. So we got engine, which is on CAN bus, tranny, anti-lock brakes, body, fuel pump, and transfer case. Nothing on the serial data network. So if we go into the airbag module, for instance, that's going to be no communication. Go into the instrument cluster, I bet you there'll be no communication. Instrument panel cluster, display codes. Yeah, exit. So I'm going to put a breakout box on this thing and have a look at the network activity. So pins 6 and 14 are high-speed LAN. Pin 4 and 5 are grounds. Pin 16 is power. Pin 1 is serial data. So we can see that the OnStar module is on there. Theft deterrent module, HVAC control module, AC compressor. Oh, that's with HP2. That's the hybrid. Instrument panel clusters on there. There's a splice pack JX221 under the dash that everything goes to. Heated seat control module. I don't think it has that. Rear seat audio entertainment, rear digital radio receiver, vehicle communication interface. UE1 I think is OnStar. It doesn't have rear seat audio. 2 or more UE1, UE2, UK. What else is on there? Audio amplifier, digital radio. And goes to the next page. I think that serial data line should be like a 7-volt square wave. And it goes to another splice pack, JX339. And airbag modules on there, rear object sensor, inflatable restraint passenger presence system, remote control door lock receiver, and memory seat module if it has that. Well, let's have a look at the network. So the voltage on the serial data line is 0.02 volts. So we're going to find that first splice pack and open it up and see if we can take some modules off the bus. So you can see with the breakout box in there, I got activity on pin 6 and 14. This is 6 and 14 at the DLC. That's CAN bus, but there's no activity on pin 1. This should be flashing. You can see the CAN bus activity looks picture perfect. Biased at about 2.5 volts with the CAN high, pin 6. It's about 2.6. And this one's 2.2, which is textbook picture perfect. So we got to diagnose this serial data network. Maybe we got a airbag module taking down the bus. Let's see what that looks like. So the serial data network goes from pin 1 of the DLC to splice pack 221, and it goes off to the radio, the door lock switch on the driver's side, passenger side, theft deterrent module, HVAC module, instrument cluster, and then on this page it goes off to another splice pack to the inflatable restraints module, passenger presence system, and remote control door lock receiver. So we got to find this splice pack JX221, and there is a picture of it there showing its location. Item number 3, I think. Number 2. Yeah, number 3. So it's, let's see, that's the driver's side of the steering column. Pretty shitty diagram, but that's it. And the colors of the wires going into it are all dark green, so it should be fairly easy to find. All the wires are the same color. So looking underneath the driver's side of the dash, you can see those green wires and that connector taped into the harness there. That's JX221. So we're going to untape that and pull it down. Hopefully we can unplug the rooster comb out of it. So it looks like a comb inside the plug, and it jumpers all of the pins together. So what we want to do now is establish the one that goes to the DLC pin 1 to one of the modules with a jumper. So there's the serial data network on pin A of this splice pack. Pin A goes to the radio. So I'm going to check all the pins one at a time to see if I got activity. And pin D goes to terminal 1 of the DLC. So theoretically, if I jump D to A, I could talk to the radio with the scan tool. But I'm interested in the theft deterrent module, which is pin B. So I'm going to go through these and see what the signals look like. But it's a 5-volt square wave. So it turns out none of the other wires in that connector had any kind of activity on it except that pin that I thought was A, but it's actually M, and that goes to the BCM. The BCM is the gateway in this network between the high speed and low speed. So theoretically we've got to jump pin M to the theft deterrent module, the instrument cluster. Yeah, I got to make some jumpers up here. So I put a jumper between pins B, D, G, and M. So the BCM to the instrument cluster, to the DLC pin 1, and to the theft deterrent module. And now you can see I've got network activity at the DLC. Nice clean square wave. Let's see if it'll start now. Yeah, beautiful thing. So we got to figure out which one of the other circuits is taking down the the serial data. So I'll just start connecting other wires one at a time to see which one loses it. Leave the key on, turn the headlights off, watch this and then jumper one pin at a time. I think I'm going to connect to that circuit that goes to the anti-lock brake modules, goes to the second splice pack here. Let's see, what pin is that? L. Let's jump to pin L and see what happens when we do that. So as soon as I connect pin L to the splice pack, it kills the network. So one of these modules, the airbag module, passenger airbag sensing and diagnostic module, or the remote control door lock receiver, is taking down this splice pack. So theoretically we need to find this splice pack now and do the same thing at it. But we know it starts, and that's with the original ECM in it. So the other splice pack that comes off of pin L at the 221 splice pack is 339, and that's item 16 in this diagram, which is under the passenger front seat. Yeah, this is the driver's side. So this is under the passenger front seat. And number 4 is the inflatable restraint module. That's under the driver's seat. And yeah, there should be another module underneath there, passenger presence system. We're going to have a look under the two front seats with the trouble light. So I found that splice pack under the passenger seat, and I was going to take the passenger seat out, but I thought I'd have a look under the driver's seat because the airbag module is under here. And I pulled this carpeting here, and there's the airbag module. Look at the salt. That is almost guaranteed the problem. See the bright yellow connector there is the airbag module connector. Wow. Yeah, the connector looks clean, but the module certainly looks compromised. I'm going to vacuum it up. I'm going to leave this module unplugged and plug in the splice pack, or put that other terminal L back on and bring those other modules underneath their seat back online. So there's the airbag module. Got a hole corroded right through it. And one terminal rotted off inside there. I have to see if that terminal is necessary, because it's broken off, corroded off in the actual connector. I thought the connector looked good, but it isn't. So looking at that sensing and diagnostic monitor, it's actually pin 31 by the looks of it that is corroded off, and 31 is battery positive power. It's a red white wire. So looking at this connector, that's a red white wire right there in pin 31. Is it labeled, numbered? Can't see any numbers on it, but I'll have to get this terminal to depin that terminal and see if we can get another module. I think we can actually install this module without having to take the seat out, because they access this hole here. I got to take this connector off, or this bolt off, stud. But we're going to put that splice pack back together again and see if the rest of the modules will communicate. Okay, so we're going to do a network code scan now. And the only thing we should have is a airbag module code, or lost communication with the airbag module, but we should be able to talk to the rest of the computers on the low speed network now. I got the splice pack plugged in, the power windows work now, because the mirror power fold control circuit, so he's got a problem with the mirror motor. Well, we'll clear these codes. Communication with door module. Lost communication with body control. Lost communication with vehicle security. Passenger presence, plausibility. Yeah, we got lots of codes related to the network. But at least we got communication with all the modules now. Let's see what we got. Engine, tranny, anti-lock brakes, ABS, body, door switch, fuel pump, HVAC, instrument panel, keyless entry, passenger presence system, theft deterrent, and an evap leak detected, small leak. How did it get that code already? Well, let's clear all the codes now. So this thing didn't need an ignition switch. It didn't likely need a starter, I don't know. And it certainly didn't need an ECM. The problem was the serial data network being shorted to ground, took down communication between the BCM, the keyless entry, the theft deterrent, and the instrument cluster. So we'll source some parts for this. See about a new airbag module and a connector pin terminal to fix that one terminal in there, and put it back together again.